So there's 3 comments to go through that remain, Rags, and then we can
Question.
bring Theo on, I guess.
Why would he
what?
blur out the YouTube comments, but he didn't blur out his patrons?
I don't even. You didn't even blur out all the YouTube comments.
Yeah, no, he only blurred out a few. So let's check out these comments. I guess we're on Chris Adams's.
Yeah.
The long-awaited Joseph pedantically and condescendingly explains why his videos cannot be criticized or responded to in any harsh way because it's all just my opinion, bro video. I expected something like this to be around the corner as soon as you published your video on horror games. Honestly, I'm not surprised you felt you had to make this. I've been a subscriber of yours for a few years now, and I've seen a lot of the flack you take in your comments for the way you word your videos. I can genuinely empathize with this. Scripting ain't easy. People will continue to find issues in your writing even after a million redrafts, and that's frustrating. You'll never please everyone, and I get that. What I don't get is that you don't seem to understand why you receive the criticism that you do. As time has gone by, I've taken issue with your videos more and more because more and more you've veered away from what made your Fallout 4 and Uncharted videos so great. So as a service to you, assuming you read this, I'm going to lay out my complaints about your channel as brutally as possible. Here's your problem. You still label all your videos as critiques. This is great for SEO and promoting your channel, but it implies to your audience that you will be analyzing and comparing objective values with and between games. As long as you're actually doing that, it's fine. It's not the part of the video that people like me take an issue with, but when you say things like, Soma fails as a horror game, Dark Souls has no story, this fight is not fun or challenging, or Hollow Knight's pacing is bad, without qualifying these statements at all, it comes across as entirely combative. Not just for people who enjoyed those games, but for people who appreciate a certain quality of writing from the analysts they listen to. I'm certain that you know this. Anyone who had a different experience than you could challenge you and prove you wrong. You're clearly aware that opinions work this way since you mentioned early in the video that these challenges have been posited to you since your very first video. But instead of altering your language since then, maybe asking yourself what you could have done differently to avoid vitriolic retorts like this one, you've consistently doubled down to the point where you are now blaming your audience for taking issue with the things that they say. With the things that you say. Beyond that, you're strawmanning legitimate criticisms of the way you word and structure your videos. Watching a movie and saying, I didn't like that, to open a discussion is entirely different to an hour-long video called Dark Souls 3 Critique. But even making that ridiculous, fallacious comparison is missing the point of the arguments against your content. You want to freely mix and match your objective statements with your subjective ones. You want to call your video a critique and discuss objective merits of design elements, but you also want to put your opinions in the middle of these sections. It's fine if you want to do that, but I'm sure you understand that it's bad writing. So then, you want to avoid taking responsibility for the language you use. And put more simply, you want to create content without anyone who watches it holding you to any account. To that end, we now have a 14-minute video of you smugly talking down to your audience about how we don't understand language and heavily implying that anyone who disagrees with you just isn't smart enough to watch or engage with your content. Then, you have the nerve to preach about holding discussion to a better standard. I have, to much my dismay, watched the quality of your writing deteriorate over the years. But worse than that, I've watched your integrity as a game critic deteriorate as well. This video, more than anything, is proof that you're comfortable resting on your laurels, and when challenged, you will say things like, my video on Fallout 4 exerts more influence in one day than anything you create in your life. Hearing statements like that from a content creator is hearing a death knell for the creativity and passion for which you once subscribed to them. But more than that, it shows how deeply couched they are in their own ego. At this point, accepting a challenge on your content is admitting to yourself that maybe your work isn't as good as you think it is. And despite what you say, you don't want discussion. You can no longer take criticism. You don't want people airing conflicted opinions on your videos, but you absolutely cannot admit that to yourself or to your audience. Listening to you talk from about 4:30 onwards was hilarious to me because you typically won't engage with dissenting commenters and will instead rely on your adoring fans to lambast us into silence on your behalf. You are perfectly willing to sit tight in your echo chamber instead of responding to the people who don't agree with you. And don't get me wrong, I don't blame you. Dealing with the scope of negativity typically found in comment sections of just one YouTube video is extremely taxing. But then, having you turn around and profess that discussions must include opinions from all angles, knowing for a fact that you don't practice this principle, it demonstrates in no uncertain terms what a hypocrite you are. In short, this video was terrible, and I hope on some level you realize it. It's heartening to see that most of the people commenting here are calling you on your bullshit, despite the disproportionate like-dislike ratio. You have finally achieved peak smug, like Aaron Hansen, H-Bomber Guy, Thunderfoot, and so many others before you. The way I see it, the way things are going, this channel has nowhere to go but down. I truly hope I'm wrong, as I've enjoyed so much of your content in the past. I genuinely want to see a return to the quality of writing and analysis that drew me to your channel in the first place. I guess a man can dream.
Does Theo have a cult of people that just write novel-sized comments?
I mean, I get a lot of novels in a lot of my videos. I'm sure you guys probably do as well, especially when it comes to like media people are really passionate about.
Oh yeah.
It's just that these ones are so based entirely on like a history that they share with the channel almost. A lot of people are saying they want to hear Joseph's response to this comment, so I'm gonna try and get it up for us.
Oh, did he respond to that one?
Well, apparently so. I just got to find it again on his video. So this is Chris Adams. Got to load a bunch of comments. Give me a sec. Chris. Ah, there we go. So, oh dear. So Joseph's is probably 3 times as long as this one.
Oh Jesus.
I don't know if I can, like, can I link the comment to people or something? Because I don't know if we can read all of this out.
Well, put it in the, can you put it in the Discord and let me see what exactly we've got?
I don't know how do I link it to you? All you need to do is load up Joseph's video, and then load comments, and then search for Chris Adams. Muller's trying to get it up.
Yeah, you're right though. Like the comments are increasingly you're seeing the more, you know, critical comments, because initially
Chris
it was
Adams.
just the people.
Chris Adams, here we go. Ah, yes, I've got it. Joseph's not doing too good in the comment section on it either.
Like Jiminy Christmas, do we want to actually read this whole thing out, or because we can encourage everybody to go and check out his response if you'd like. Obviously,
I don't really want to.
Because I don't. The problem is it's too large even for EFAP right now, considering where we are. Because we want to get Theo on as well. It's actually like.
And we also got a Wolf had a special.
Well, we got there's 2 comments to get through a sec. So go back to the ones we were actually showing. So yeah, if you guys want to see.
Before that, real quick, there were some quality prequel memes in the chat.
Oh yeah.
My favorite one so far. Don't lecture me, Mauler. I've seen through the lies of EFAP. I do not see subjectivity as you do. I have brought implied subjectivity, arrogance, facts, and insults to my new fan base.
All right, new plan.
Great.
We're gonna do the rest of the comments we have planned. We'll bring Theo on to talk, see how that goes. If we want to then read out his comment and respond to it, that could be the last thing we do, just because. How much time?
I thought there was something else that we wanted to look at.
Well, we got 2 comments left for Rags to read out on the thing. These are 2 are short anyway, so they're
Right.
just more of a punchline basically. So the first one was Sarech or Sarech.
Sarah.
I mean, I can read them out if you want. I don't mind.
Sarek, might as well finish it up. Sarek says, I started disliking Joe more and more as I watched his content. He starts to grind you out when he's being incompetent at something and blames it on everything but himself. Other than that, I'd never taken him seriously. I thought he was more, but sadly, he's just another game essay YouTuber who had a good streak, took a turn for the worst, and let it go to his head. Good luck in future projects, Joe.
And then the last one.
QE says, poor man's Matthew Matosis.
And that's it. And you know what we're trying to highlight with these comments is that the response from his fans has been just one of passionate disappointment, I suppose you could say. There's loads of approval, by the way. There's plenty of comments that are like, yeah, Joe, you're right, and all these guys are assholes, that sort of thing. Or, I did say I was looking for, like, passionate agreement, like a big comment about how much people get this wrong, or something like that, but, I'm sure they exist. Again, you can always look for them and stuff, but, yeah, that's just sort of an interesting selection of comments, considering the video, which... Going through it, the condescension might actually be my biggest issue with this. Not even the fact that he's trying to talk about a subject, just the whole, like, how he fucking did it.
People think this video was good, and I'm like, this is fucking shit. This is... We're looking up which one? Jones's?
The response to Chris Adams. So if
Here
you
it
could
is,
find Chris
okay.
Adams, yeah.
Yeah. So, Joseph comes back and says, to many less thumbs up, as a thing. So as a service to you, I say. So he quotes, here's your problem. You still label all your videos as critiques. This is great for SEO and promoting your channel. Should I just read the responses parts, or do I need to read the quotes?
I guess we need the context in case, I don't know. It's up to you.
Let me see. So he's quoting, here's your problem. You still label all your videos as critiques. This is great for SEO and promoting your channel, but it implies to your audience analyzing and comparing objective values with and between games. As long as you're actually doing that, it's fine. That's not the part of the videos people like me take issue with. But when you say things like Soma fails as a horror game, Dark Souls has no story, this fight is not fun or challenging, or Hollow Knight's pacing is bad, without qualifying these statements at all, it comes across as extremely combative. Not just for people who enjoyed those games, but for people who appreciate a certain quality of writing from the analysts they listen to. Joseph responds, these statements were qualified in the videos. You are incorrect. Aside from the Dark Souls has no story one, but I don't believe I've ever explicitly said that in a video. Only in the comments or other discussions outside of the critiques. So if you, because if he implied it in a video and then confirmed it in a comment.
This is the thing, he doesn't actually need to argue against the person's argument, considering he's already said, well, I implied subjectivity, so meh.
But Dark Souls has a story, it does.
It does have a story, yeah.
Like, so that's just incorrect entirely. There is a plot. What the...
Yeah, I mean, some people say that, like, you know, you're the undead and you're going from one boss to another and you get to the end. It's not really a story. It's like, there's still, even if you think it's threadbare, there's a story.
There is a story.
Yeah, it's
There's
a story.
clearly a sequence of events that take place that change the world.
And there's a conclusion to the story as well. A conclusion to the narrative.
That's just your opinion.
Yeah. It has an obtuse story. It has a story that you have to look in all the ways, but it exists.
So Joseph says, Soma fails as a horror game was discussed at length with examples to support why I think so in the video. I'm pretty sure I talk about why I think this for 10 minutes.
And his references were pitiful, and a lot of them were subjective. It's like, I was scared by this. And finally, even if he had everything right, you wouldn't be able to make the statement he made. You can't make the statement Soma fails as a horror game in any way other... It's just wrong. Like, I don't know what criteria you have in which that is valid. It's like, it doesn't make sense. But, you know... I was going to say...
The only way that statement works is if Soma didn't scare him, and that cannot qualify as Soma failing as a horror game. That's Soma failing to scare him.
Well, you realize all you should have said is Soma didn't scare me, and you're like, oh, why didn't you say that? Because you have to be...
Because you're stupid.
It has to be impactful. That's an impactful statement. Do you remember how he delivers it? He does each word at a time. He goes, Soma is not a horror game. It isn't scary. He, like, pauses his video to do it. Just impactful. Also, someone said, why are you not getting all your references and responding in a video instead of shit posting? You're better than this. I want to address the person. I'm working on videos on something else. This is something I can do instead of not doing it at all. And I think we've done a really good job, to be honest.
We've all got...
we've been going for hours.
We took... I did all the references in advance. We've all seen the video in advance. We've done our best to actually argue for Joseph Anderson in a lot of sections. We broke down I think it's due to do with the fact that he defines words differently, but he's also extremely pretentious. He doesn't deal well with criticism, and he's smug as fuck.
And I think most importantly, everybody here would be keen to actually talk to him about this.
Oh, and I am salty about Soma. I don't mind
Well,
that.
yes.
Well, yeah, because what Joseph
Sure.
Anderson said was fucking retarded.
And it did the thing that Film Bob was talking about in the previous EFAP, the one about Shinobi, where he said that cinema sins will actually cost sales by telling people movies are bad when they're not. Joseph costs frictional game sales by telling people that SOMA's not a horror game, which is not true. So it's just, this is the kind of it's like, I think I'm salty. Yeah, I'm salty.
It didn't scare me. It's not a horror game.
Anyway,
That's the standard.
He states that he discussed at length with examples to support why he thinks SOMA fails as a horror game, but then he backpedals to state that subjectivity is implied and that he is talking subjectively from his opinion the moment his qualifiers are attacked.
Yeah.
That's what's happening here. He doesn't respond to, like, he doesn't defend the qualifiers, he just abandons them and runs away.
Like, yeah, when you put it that way.
And even then, it's going from his perspective, it's not a horror game if it doesn't scare me.
Which again,
Which is factually incorrect.
It's not an
that's
action
pretty-
movie because it's me.
I've got to be honest, I would abandon that qualifier if it was my position to defend.
just
Well, yeah, that's what most people.
that's what I. Why can't you just say that? Why can't you just be like, yeah, what it means is I didn't find the game scary, even a little bit. And then someone says, why didn't you just say that? And you'd go, next time I will, because obviously this is not translating my ideas correctly. And I've got a different take on what these words mean, but most people don't share that take, so...
So, quote, this fight is not fun or challenging. Joseph says, you're going to have to be more specific about...
I think
No,
this
he's
is
just-
that guy's comment
just
on
reading
his
it.
comment, I think? I don't know.
No, this is Joseph saying this. It's just really poorly written.
Okay.
So that's why it confused me. Because I'm reading this and it doesn't form a cohesive thought, so I have to stop and my brain has to catch up.
You've done a lot
You're
of reading
going
of
to
things.
have to be specific about when you think I said this without giving a reason why, but I am confident that I have always backed a statement like that up with evidence. The only video I may have not done that was in the Dark Souls 2 level design and bosses. I think that's my worst video, so I'd agree there.
I criticized his one for that. I used a quote from it as a bad piece of writing, so... He agrees, yay.
Quote, Hollow Knight's pacing is bad. Joseph says, I went into arguably too much detail justifying this claim, so I cannot begin to understand how you can say that I don't qualify these sorts of criticisms. Like this one isn't even remotely close. It's so out of the realm of accuracy that I question if you even watched the video.
Unfortunately, I'd have to watch the video to know.
Spending too long on something, what happens if your qualifiers or your kind of irrelevant or pointless?
Or what if
I
they
don't understand
contradict?
how
Like this video here. Like he contradicts himself in this video here. He shoots his own point to pieces because he goes on for too long. Eventually, he contradicts himself. And which one of the two things are we supposed to take at its value?
Whichever
So,
one
next
makes
up-
him seem smarter.
So, quote, I'm certain that you know this. Anyone who had a different experience than you could challenge you and prove you wrong. You're clearly aware that opinions work this way since you mentioned early in the video that these challenges have been posited to you since your very first video. But instead of altering your language since then, maybe asking yourself what you could do differently to avoid vitriolic retorts like this one, you've consistently doubled down to the point where you are now blaming your audience for taking issue with the things that you say. Joseph says, I have not doubled down. The opposite is true. I have made a concerted effort to say, in my opinion, I think that, more often than I think I should because of comments about objectivity. In my most opinion-based video, I even gave it a title that communicated without any ambiguity whatsoever that I was presenting my own perspective. How can you look at the previous video and think that I've leaned harder into the issue? I don't know.
We've
how
already
Joseph can think
tackled
this.
how the title does not automatically... It's just so ridiculous. Shouldn't he agree with me if I say the title of my video is "This is all my opinion," and then I start stating facts throughout the entire thing? So then he, with his definitions, he would be like, "Well, that video title is inaccurate." Like what I'm getting at here is he's like, "I even named it that," and it's like it doesn't matter what the title is if that's not the content of the video. Also, they did highlight you skipped the "by the way" part, Rags, of what you said about the Hollow Knight one.
Where?
Just under the Hollow Knight bit.
Oh, there's a line there. He says, by the way, I'm not saying my reasoning for any of these is airtight and 100% correct, But you're not saying that. You're claiming that I didn't qualify any of these statements, which is not true. So going back,
we can't know for sure unless we watch those videos.
Know that, yeah. Quote. Beyond that, let me see. Quote, beyond that, you're strawmanning legitimate criticisms of the way you word and structure your video. Watching a movie and saying, I didn't like that, to open a discussion is entirely different to an hour-long video called, quote, Dark Souls 3 Critique. But even making that ridiculous, fallacious comparison is missing the point of the arguments against your content. You want to freely mix and match your objective statements with your subjective ones. You want to call your videos a critique and discuss objective merits of design elements, but you also want to put your opinions in the middle of these sections. It's fine if you want to do that, but I'm sure you understand that it's bad writing. Joseph says, this goes against what I say in the video above this comment section. So what's happening here? Did you not pay attention or do you not believe me? There are no qualitative, objective statements in my videos. There never have been. There never will be. There is no mixing and matching.
There is. There
Any
has been.
statement, yeah. Any statement about merits is subjective.
Any statement about merits is subjective.
SOMA
That's what he says. He
fails
says,
as a
yeah.
horror game.
Let me just check
It's
the
not
definition of
scary.
merit. The quality of being particularly good or worthy. And what is worthy? It'd be like it depends on what standard you're looking for.
Well, we already know the definition of good, and good can be qualified in an objective
Yeah,
standard.
this is not 100% subjective. It depends on what you're fucking saying, Joseph.
Yeah, he
God
says
damn
any
it.
statement about merits is subjective, no exceptions. The
If you-
only objective statements are directly from in-game evidence and have no judgment about quality. They are
So-
examples to support subjective points.
What do these people think quality means? Only subjective? Like, the degree to which you achieve a standard equals quality, and the standard can be how it made you feel. The standard can be how efficient is this hammer in terms of its, balance, its weight, its blah blah blah. There's all these different, talk to it.
Myopic Turtle, you are incorrect. Turtle says worthy and good require a value-based framework which can only be subjective. No, I don't agree.
Why?
Well, it depends if he's arguing from that whole everything is subjective thing, which if he is, yeah, that's fine, but that's a worldview difference.
Yes, it is objective. The scissors example can be judged through objective standards, having the qualities required for a particular role. Once you name what that role is, you have objective standards by which to judge them.
The thing I'm curious about is if you, in a vacuum, like ignoring the context of his previous videos, asked Joseph Anderson if he believes the statement. I mean, first off, it's called a statement. If you asked him if he thinks the statement "SOMA fails as a horror game" is a definitive judgment about a subject or a personal feeling on the matter, what would he say?
Everyone would say
Well,
the
I
former.
think now he'd say yeah, but now I feel like he'd say the latter.
Oh, you would,
because
yeah,
of
to
this
defend
video.
himself.
But that's why I'm saying without the context of his videos.
Oh,
Oh, well.
then the former. Yeah, right.
Yeah, no,
He's
But
wrong.
He'll pick whichever one he needs to escape out the back door.
Yep.
So, quote, put more simply, you want to create content without anyone who watches it holding you to any account. To that end, we now have a 14-minute video of you smugly talking down to your audience about how we don't understand language and heavily implying that anyone who disagrees with you just isn't smart enough to watch or engage with your content. Then you have the nerve to preach about holding a discussion to a better standard. Joseph says, if you want to link to a point where you think I'm talking down to my audience and explain why to me, then feel encouraged to do so because I don't believe I did that.
I believe Morla has a list.
Holy fuck, Joseph. You are just on another round.
There's
reality
a
right now.
few. There's a few examples.
And that's one video.
Yeah,
Oh,
which
boy.
How long is that video? 14 minutes?
I mean, jeez.
yeah, interesting.
Wow. All right. I didn't do
I
nothing.
mean,
All right.
yeah, like we're not saying anything right now. It's just like we're in disbelief. Like, do you actually need us to prove this?
Kinda. Like he actually doesn't think that he said any of those things in
Like,
this video here.
This is the problem. I think he doesn't even realize he's talking down to his audience.
Damn, man.
He
It's like
has-
that's like we were saying when we were watching it. I would never say some of those things about my audience that he did.
Yeah, it's really bizarre, to be honest. It's just, I'm surprised.
He has explicitly stated he believes his audience doesn't understand how conversations work if they're criticizing his previous video.
And how is that
What
not
are you talking
down
about?
to
I
him?
didn't smugly tell my audience, like, oh, more people are going to see my video than they'll ever their whole lives.
Like,
Hey,
come on,
Joseph,
Joe.
Are you really going to try and sit here and jerk us around and tell us that you didn't say that?
I'm just
The
wondering
difference
again,
here-
if you sent him the timestamp, would he... how would he respond to that, or would he respond?
That's just subjective.
What's interesting
Ah,
is that
sorry,
if
you
I
interpreted it that way.
looked at my comment section and said these people don't understand me, then that's my fault. When he looks at his audience and says they don't understand me, he says that's their fault.
I mean, I'd say it's the context for you looking at your audience and there's like one guy in 10 million that disagrees, it might not be your fault. But in the case of having
outliers notwithstanding.
Yeah, but if you get several essay-long content with comments that are stacking up on your video that are in massive disagreement and disappointment with you, there's something's up. Something's up.
Well, yeah, that's right. And it might not necessarily like that you're wrong, but there is definitely something that's
Something's
happened. There's some sort of disconnect. Yeah, there's something at least.
And why not then engage with those people?
Well, I think
guess-
he thinks that he is engaging with them. That's the thing. Like, he
Yeah.
probably thinks that this was a good response.
He's wrong.
Yes, he is.
wrong.
But
He's wrong.
what do you say? What do you say? You know?
Yeah,
This
oof.
This is the direct opposite of engagement. He's made an entire video justifying not engaging with his audience.
Anyway, it moves on. Quote, I have, much to my dismay, watched the quality of your writing deteriorate over the years. But worse than that, I've watched your integrity as a game critic deteriorate as well. Joseph responds, examples? You criticized me above for not qualifying statements and then drop this with nothing to back it up whatsoever. It's a YouTube comment, so that's cool. You don't have to. But you said you're trying to provide constructive feedback, and these sorts of statements are worthless.
He's not necessarily wrong.
Wait a second. I thought no opinions were worthless.
Oh!
Oh, it pays to have memory, doesn't it?
Okay,
Oh, Joseph, you might want to remember.
That's kind of fucked up. You sort of, oof.
It's funny because we said when he said it that there is such a thing as a worthless opinion, surely.
Well,
and it's
I
like,
think it's just that a lot of the time we've been holding him to his own standard, not necessarily.
Yeah, that's
that,
the thing.
that's all this is really. Like,
That's rough.
but this person has provided. I mean, they provided examples, but the thing is, like the SOMA example that goes back to 2015. So, you know, they would need to be more specific if they wanted to make some kind of extended criticism, I guess. But it's just funny that he did go back on his own statement there.
It was interesting. All the consistency that we do expect from Joseph Anderson, of course. He goes on, so he quotes, this video, more than anything, is proof that you're comfortable resting on your laurels, and when challenged, you will say things like, my video on Fallout 4 exerts more influence in one day than anything you create in your life. Hearing statements like that from a content creator is hearing a death knell for the creativity and passion for which you once subscribed to them. But more than that, it shows how deeply couched they are on their own ego. So Joseph replies, that statement has the opposite meaning of what you're taking. It's demonstrating that I have a responsibility to support the statements I make in my videos because they have that much influence.
Humble brag.
It's supporting what you said above about qualifying statements in the videos, except that I'm arguing that I consistently do so. I also say right before that, my opinion is not worth more than anyone else's. How is this about ego?
Because you said that more people listen to you in a day than many people listen to their entire lives. I don't know what's the disconnect there, Joseph. You wrote that. He just doesn't see it. Let me give you an example, Joseph. You're in the gym and you have a friend you go with every day, but you only do like cardio. You're just trying to lose some weight, and this friend is doing full on muscle work. And every day he comes in and he says, I'm stronger than you. And then they carry on working. And you're just like, okay. And it's like, why did you say it? And he goes, oh, well, I just wanted to make you aware that that's the kind of routine we're doing. I'm doing like strength and pick up and muscle work while you're doing running and stuff. And it's like, why, you could have just said that. You didn't need to say that you're stronger than me. And then you go, there's a bit ego. And then he goes, how is it about my ego? It's true. It's just, there's a better way to get these ideas across. That's all.
You don't even need to make the point he's making with reference to his influence.
No, I didn't.
I have a responsibility to support the statements I make.
If you have 10 subscribers, you can make that statement.
I have a responsibility to support the statements I make.
Yeah, you don't even need 8
Regardless
subscribers.
of how many people,
Yes.
yeah. Regardless of how many people listen to you.
Yeah,
Ability
like you
to
just said,
present your
you could have
argument
0
effectively.
Let me,
subscribers.
I want to clarify, by the way, for people who, because I know that people will feel like it's an unfair comparison. What I'm highlighting is that there's ways to get information across to people, and how you will choose to do it. It'll often have a telling statement about what your actual goals are, or how big your ego is. And yes, there is a huge problem with ego within people of not realizing it, not checking it themselves. And you often need friends to check it for you, or people who know you. This is going to be something that any YouTuber deals with, because you are putting your words out there as if they should be listened to. That's why you make the videos. You're like, people should listen to this. It's not just for me. That's why I'm putting it out there. So to translate certain messages to people, you can choose many ways of doing it. And just the way that he did that is very telling. That's what the point is. Like we said when we covered it, it doesn't even matter if it's true. That's not the point.
He's adopting the objective formal critique style of game analysis, but he's unwilling to accept the baggage that comes along with that, in the form of having to defend your opinion after it has been stated.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that
Especially when it's your job.
yeah,
that's
because
true.
when you tell someone something, they are not obligated to believe you. They are free to question the premises on which you make your conclusions.
Mm-hmm.
And when they do that, Joseph Anderson runs away.
A little bit.
It's so bizarre. I
That it is.
genuinely don't understand it.
Yeah, we've got just a bit left.
Yeah, almost at the end. So he quotes, "At this point, accepting a challenge on your content is admitting to yourself that maybe your work isn't as good as you think it is. Despite what you say, you don't want discussion. You can no longer take criticism. You don't want people airing conflicting opinions on your videos, but you absolutely cannot admit that to yourself or to your audience. Listening to you talk from about 4:30 onwards was hilarious to me, because you typically won't engage with dissenting commenters and will instead rely on your adoring fans to lambast us into silence on your behalf. You are perfectly willing to sit tight in your echo chamber instead of responding to the people who don't agree with you. And don't get me wrong, I don't blame you. Dealing with a scope of negativity typically found in the comment section of just one YouTube video is extremely taxing. But then having to turn around and profess that discussions must include opinions from all angles while knowing for a fact that you don't practice this principle demonstrates in no uncertain terms what a hypocrite you are." Joseph says, "This part is why I decided to respond, because this is total bullshit. Have you gone through all the comments on all my videos? Read all of my Twitter replies and sat in on every stream and Discord discussion? Because if you haven't, you have no idea what you're talking about. I discuss my points with my audience all the time. How can you even begin to think that you can speak so confidently about this when you clearly have no idea what you're talking about? Did you even look to see how many comments I replied to on the last video? Reach back how condescending you're being when you are literally talking out of your ass." That's not what literally means, Joseph. You're a writer.
Literally talking out of your
You're a writer, Joseph. You should know what the words mean. "You do not need to make up shit to criticize me. I'm sure there's enough you can find and make an argument on."
Yeah,
So
I just,
quote,
it's amusing that he's got the whole, you being condescending. It's like, yeah.
It would take moments, maybe minutes, to go to his previous video, find someone providing counter arguments or just disagreeing with his stance, and then, find an example of him being dismissive towards that person.
Yeah, and I think what the person's highlighting isn't that he doesn't respond and ignores everyone. It's that, like, his form of, I guess, responding is like evasion, or he's not. How do I put this? Like to take criticism isn't just about responding to it, like reading and responding. So yeah, but the guy, Joseph's right. If you don't look at every single conversation he's ever had, I suppose you can't say that he will never take criticism or cannot take criticism. But those are obviously, I would assume those are hyperbolic statements. We don't know.
The
This
hyperbole
video-
is implied.
This
Yeah, well,
video,
Joseph
though,
Anderson
is-
didn't pick that up, so
His entire comment was fairly hyperbolic, so from the overall tone of it, it's easy to infer that he's being hyperbolic again.
yeah, like if Joseph thinks this guy is saying that he's seen every single conversation taking place between Joseph and any one of his fans, maybe you're looking a little too far into it, because I wouldn't have assumed that myself. But
All
fair
right,
enough.
so he is to wrap it up. Quote, in short, this video was terrible, and I hope on some level you realize that. It's heartening to me to see that most of the people commenting here are calling you on your bullshit despite the disproportionate like-dislike ratio. And Joseph answers, most of the commenters agree with the video. I know this because I have read almost all of them. Something tells me you haven't.
Boo!
Appeal to popularity fallacy. That's great.
Well, yeah.
Not
So he
really.
said it's heartening to see that. Well, in fairness, he said most of the people commenting here are calling you on your bullshit, and he's saying
Right.
most of the commenters agree with the video. That is an actual fair counter. If it was in response to the video is terrible, that most people liked it, that you'd be right. But yeah, that's that. We could keep going because there's a thread that continues. But I mean,
But we will literally be here forever.
I was gonna say, I
if we
think
do that.
it's good to halt it there. That is Joseph Anderson having a lot of difficulty with his fan base currently, and I'd say the main point seems to be the idea of objectivity versus subjectivity and the delivery of those ideas.